I'm going to get through some slides. They're quite detailed, but they're easy to read. And I'm not going to read every single word for word, but you're going to get a copy. All the attendees will get a copy of this presentation in the PDF form. So you can take notes, or you can, kind of review afterwards. And certainly this is all, some of it is going to be new. Some of it's going to be reminders. Some of it you will already know, but I try to cover as much as I can in the short time we have. So here we go. Let's see. Now I can't move my thing. Let's see. There we go. All right. So this is a little bit about me. I've been doing this for 26 years. Just celebrated my 25th year in business last year. I started my company when I was 44 years old in '99. So that makes me 70 years old today. So I'm right there with you. Those of you that are in the 60, 50 something, there's a lot of things left to do. And the baby boomers are so appreciated today, because there's the work ethic and the knowledge and the wisdom and expertise is very transferable. And there's a lot of mentoring to do out there. So remember, your skills and your expertise are very much in need today. I've got a few things that I'm going to review today that are new. As I mentioned, I'm going to take it right from my book, The Interview Mindset, which was my second book, and obviously my most successful book of the three. So let's get going here. Let's try to make this thing work. I'm trying to. Okay, so it's using my mouse. Okay, so a lot of this is my thoughts. A lot of it comes through as pure advice, some gems, but you got to remember, everything works when you use your network. You can apply for jobs all you want. It's a black hole. We all know that. Sometimes it will deliver a result, and you might get yourself a phone screen or even an interview. God bless you if that happens. But informational interviews is one of the things that I expect with all of my clients. They have to conduct them at least one a day, preferably in person. If not, over Zoom and over the phone is okay, but not as effective as face-to-face. If you work from a standpoint that you are constantly looking for air, we need air in order to make your career grow. And of course, we know that advice, referrals, and information, actually it's advice, information, and referrals. I just caught my own typo. But air is definitely a requirement if you're going to continue working until you decide to retire. Always be ready to introduce yourself and share your story. Critical when it comes to having the proper mindset to getting into a good, productive conversations. I like to talk about this real briefly. We're only going to cover this one slide on LinkedIn. It is the 800-pound gorilla. Every single book has a chapter about LinkedIn. My phrase is get LinkedIn or get left out. If you're not 100% optimized on your LinkedIn profile, you should try to get that done as quickly as possible. But the way that the LinkedIn algorithm works is that it gauges your how many times you hit the like button every day. And if you are able to make comments, I would recommend 3 comments on different posts that are out there. So you're going to have to spend about an hour a day on LinkedIn, become a power user 5 days a week. It's not easy to do 5-3-1 every day, but you get into a groove. And when LinkedIn sees your activity increase, you automatically get a higher ranking, and you are found more easily by companies, search firms, especially search firms. And if you post something new every day, you find an article on the Wall Street Journal, you hit the in button, share it, but give some thoughts as to why you're sharing, and it will gauge, LinkedIn will gauge your activity, and it will increase your rating, your ranking as to how high you are with your keywords, okay? There's a lot of this that you probably knew, but if you do this formula, it will exponentially increase your ranking in the LinkedIn world. And there's over 1 billion users in LinkedIn. Over 200 million companies are using LinkedIn to find people, and almost 96% of every search, 96% of all search firms are using LinkedIn exclusively as their database. So don't forget about LinkedIn when it comes to increasing your presence and visibility online. So 85% of the jobs are not posted on the internet. Okay, that's a fact. So how do you find them? Where do you go? Are they really hidden jobs? Not really. If you've got a cell phone, you've got all those contacts are where your hidden jobs are. If you have a cell phone and you've got 500 contacts, those are probably the most important contacts that you know, or they wouldn't be in your cell phone. You can also look in your Outlook contacts, zero in on the ones that mean the most or highest ranking, the one that have helped you in the past that you know well. These are the people that you need to go after and introduce yourself, reintroduce yourself, update, tell your story. If you can meet them for a cup of coffee, that would be even more powerful. But in the long run, when you're interviewing, you're trying to get yourself going, and you're looking for people to help you through this process. Remember, it's not about you, it's about the company. The company wants to hear what you have to say and how you can make a difference in their organization, what you will contribute, and I call them your key deliverables. Don't say what you bring to the table, because it makes everybody sick when they hear it. Okay? Don't use the common phrases, right? That everybody says the same thing, and it's not necessary. Come up with a unique way that describes what you're able to do for a company, and be unique. That's how you remain memorable instead of forgettable. So make a living and do what you love. This is what I have found. I wish this for everyone. I figured a way, and you can do it too. If you have that security blanket job as your target, that you get a W-2, with the bonus and the company benefits. If that's the security blanket that you're looking for, God bless you. Keep the path. Keep looking for that replacement job if you're in transition, or an upgrade based on what you're currently doing. But if you've ever thought of talking about creating your own entity, it's never been a better time. I say this repeatedly. I've been coaching Plan B as the new Plan A. Plan B is the entrepreneurial track. Plan A is the corporate track. But you've got so many options right now. Fractional and interim management, very, very popular. If you've got the capital, you can buy a franchise, and you can also use your retirement without penalty. As you probably have researched, anybody, there's a couple of people on this call that I know that have looked in and have gone through purchase of the buying of a franchise. And it's not just about Panera Bread, okay? There's a lot of business franchises that are out there that are very effective, and companies need this, small, medium-sized companies. If you haven't talked to anyone who's a board member, or if you have lately, you should reach out to everyone you know that's got a board advisory or board director role. This is also a terrific way for semi-retirement in the future. The average annual salary is $68,000 per board seat. Okay, and that's for about 10 to 12 hours a year. And I know people who have 5 to 10, and I know 10 board seats at 68,000. Do the math. 10 board seats, 68 each. It adds up, but it can definitely, help you through some downturns, and especially if you decide to go full speed and full term on being a professional board director or advisor. I write a whole chapter in my book about how to take it yourself from the C-suite to the board seat. Very, very viable option as you're starting to get into your senior years, if you've not already looked into this. So all interviews are like first dates. We're getting into the interview section of my presentation. Everything, this is all very active information that I believe you can apply immediately. Everything is true. If it fits and you've been in a situation where it becomes awkward or you really don't know what's going to happen after your first interview, you need to take notice on some of the slides that are coming up and how we can work together on getting out of what I call interview limbo, where after your first interview, you end up with no idea what's going to happen next. And I hate the term, but it's ghosting is one of the worst things that companies do, and also candidates do. But mainly it comes delivered by the company that ends up not getting back to you quickly, and you wonder what the heck it was all about, that you just spent your time interviewing with the company. So interview types, we got one-on-one, face-to-face. You've got a screening over the phone or via Zoom. I like meetings that include a meal. It gets people out of the office. You get to know who they really are. A board committee or a panel interview. I like panel interviews because nobody can dispute what was said. If you have a one-on-one, 5 separate people, they can always dispute what was heard, what was not asked, what was said by you. But in a panel interview, it's gospel. Everything is on the record and they all heard it together. So I do encourage my clients to not fret, but embrace the panel interview. Zoom meetings, it's going on. It's never going to change. Zoom is real popular for job interviews and informational or networking interviews. Can't say it enough. Informational interviews is your #1 tool to get into a new company. I'd like to say that companies' best way for hiring people is to work internally through their own employees. And many good companies offer a bounty. So anyone that refers somebody internally that they know outside the company that gets hired, they could end up getting a $2,000 bounty. I know many companies like Cisco and Salesforce, they do this religiously because they know the best people are coming from internal referrals through their own employees. So what that tells you is that is also the best way for you to find a new opportunity, is work your internal referrals. Find out where your former colleagues are, former alumni, and go do these informational interviews and tell your story and update them and make it a two-way street. Don't just expect them to help you, but offer your assistance in their world as well. Consulting interviews, if you're going after a plan B type of role, you can pivot from a regular job interview into, hey, maybe this isn't the best opportunity for you at this company, but you can certainly help them. So why not pivot into a consulting type of role and ask the board or ask the panel or the individual, the owner of the company, would you be interested if I put together a statement of work and offer myself up as a consultant part-time during the interim before you hire this person, because I'm not sure this is the right job for me, but I know I can help you right now. And you can tack on $200 an hour or spread it out for the month and do a monthly retainer for 3 months. Everything is valuable with regards to what you're trying to do, but you have multiple options. Just remember, multiple streams of revenue is a wonderful thing. And there's nothing wrong with getting 1099s at the end of the year. So what is your plan? What's your passion, your lessons, your accomplishments, and your needs? This is your criteria. You need to know everything that you are going to be able to deliver. What are the lessons you've learned? These are the things that, if you will never repeat the mistake again, but boy, what a great lesson it was, right? The accomplishments, what are your biggest wins, the most proudest moments that you were able to do? These are real stories that need to be communicated in an interview. Your needs. This is your criteria for making the right choice. You have people, challenge, balance, and worth. All of these things are your criteria and you rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. This is when you're looking at the company so you avoid making a bad choice, and joining the wrong company is a killer. It's terrible, because in 6 months, if you've chosen wrong and you have to start over again, is really, really difficult and can set you back, both, emotionally, and it just drains you when you know you have to start all over in a search. So rank the people, the challenge. If it's not challenging, it's boring. If it's boring, you're choosing wrong. And if there's work-life balance, okay, depending on where your current life is, your family, you've got kids in school, or you've got young children, again, depending on where you are in your career, work-life balance can be a big part for your decision making. And then worth, can they afford to pay you what you're worth? In California, they can't ask your work history, so you've got an advantage there. I think up to 22 states have now adopted that same law, that they cannot ask you for your prior salary. So you have an advantage here. And if you're going after a company, you definitely want to be paid what you're worth based on your contribution factor. We've got a little bit of some slides that we'll go through towards the end of this presentation on salary negotiation. So obviously this is a little bit of rudimentary, but if anything pops up, Ruben, if somebody posts something in the chat or you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me and let me know, and we can talk about this. But most of this is good advice that you're going to need to make sure that you cover and not take for granted. And by all means, you definitely need to send thank you notes. I had one client who forgot to send a thank you note, and he never heard from the company. And 2 weeks later, he called the owner, and the owner said, well, we never got a thank you note, so we figured you didn't want to work here, and we hired somebody else. True story. I mean, it just broke my heart when I heard that, because it's a simple thing to do. And you can't just get by with sending an email. You should do something like go over to Hallmark and get some blank thank you cards and write something in there and put a postage stamp on it. Okay? Even if you don't want the job, if it's not the right fit, always leave with a good impression. Good, solid advice. So researching, my advice to every single client that I work with is learn something about the company that they don't even know. And I mean, figure out what's going on with their competitors. See what their competitors are doing. See what's going on. Do reverse interviewing with former employees. Find out what's going on that maybe they can help you, even when it comes to making a decision whether you want to work there or not. But you want to go into this so prepared that they get it. They get your intuitiveness, your passion, your possibility of being a great fit for their executive team. It needs to be established, and there's nothing better than knowing their company as much as you possibly can. None of this is rocket science, but it's essential that you cover and check these boxes. So what is your story? I've said this my entire career. The ultimate power is to know thyself. If you don't know your highest and best use to any organization, you're in trouble right now. What do you deliver? Do you have a brand, a slogan, a motto, or a mantra? Use it. If you go back to my first introductory page and who I am, I have many slogans, okay? I use these when I'm introducing myself, if I'm speaking, or if I'm just, at an event, meeting people. And, what my favorite quote is, put it in your LinkedIn profile. Maybe put it at the end of your signature in all your emails. Let people know what your philosophy, your beliefs are. When you're in an interview, you've got to make sure you know your top 8 significant accomplishments that you're most proud of. Be able to answer questions in no longer than 2 minutes or less. If you go longer than 2 minutes, you're putting them to sleep. They won't remember what you said. The ultimate the ultimate way to communicate is using brevity. Less is more. Do not ramble. Do not go on and on. Do not recite your resume. It's the worst thing you can do when they say, tell me about yourself. Okay? The elevator pitch, obviously, is your story. It's not your life story. Like, I was born in Newport News, Virginia. I'm the oldest of 7. I grew up in Chicago. I moved to California when I was 22. You don't need to go there. Talk about real objectives, things that you're doing right now, things that you've done that you're proud of. That's the way you do your positioning statement. Okay? Make sure you're when you're communicating who you are and what you're doing, you're creating advocates, people who can endorse you, people who can potentially be your references, especially former employees, former supervisors. Here are questions you need to be ready for. I'm not going to redo them all, but you've got to be ready for these questions no matter what, because they are coming your way. And one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to why did you leave your last job, or your reason for leaving or reason for looking. Recruiters want to know this immediately, and you better have a prepared statement, almost like you're reading a press release to the news. But it's got to sound comfortable, relaxed, unrehearsed, and it's got to be believable, right? If you lost your job, why did that happen? This is essential, and this can trip you up more than any other question in an interview. And those of you that are skittish, or they're a little nervous about any of these questions, we can talk about it. I'm happy to entertain a short call or a little bit more if you need to talk about what your comfort level is with some of these questions. And these are not tricky questions. They're basic, but they're not gotcha if you're ready. They're not gotcha questions if you're prepared and you're ready to answer, and you're scripted out and you can rehearse and practice the answer, but deliver it in an unrehearsed, comfortable cadence, in a comfortable way of ending on the down note rather than the up note, so you sound more confident. So informational interviews, can't say enough about it, but 1 out of 12 informational interviews could and will increase your chance of getting a job offer. So what does it tell you that you have 500 people in your cell phone, maybe 700 people in your Outlook contacts, give or take? You need to zero in on the most important 50, top 50. Maybe zero in the next top 25. These are the people that you have as your eyes and ears in the market. They need to know you're there for them as much as you hope they're there for you. Very important that they become your eyes and ears. And sharing with them your complete professional objective. Put it in writing, send it in an email before you have that productive meeting, or deliver it to them in person. Let them read through it. Let them see your target companies as well, so you can really make this thing work. This is an informational interview, and you want to be as curious about them as they hopefully will be about you. Ask them, what's it like working in their company? How did they find their job? What advice would you offer me during my search? Again, it's a conversation. It's a cup of coffee. But you need to stay into this mode rather than clicking and sending your email with your resume attached and hoping the phone's going to ring, because you're in for a long wait, especially at a high-level executive job. Never going to work. If you were a junior code writer, you're probably better off just sending your resume and blasting it into cyberspace, and you will be called if you're at that young junior level, but not at the senior level. It just will not work. Making a good impression. You get to the interview 10 minutes early. If you're, as they say in military time, if you're not early, you're late. Okay? obviously nothing rocket science here. Being confident, I like to use the needle, right? The needle is underconfident, not going to happen. Overconfident comes off as cocky and arrogant. That's the quickest way for a rejection. Nobody wants to work with ego type of people with that ego. Let's say their personality enters the room before they physically walk through the door. That's a kiss of death. So be neutral. Be a human Switzerland. Be naturally curious. Greet everybody like they could be a customer, a very good customer that you could lose. Okay? And don't forget the last two, no longer than 2 minutes. Get your thank you notes off. So here's some great questions to ask. What are the 5 or 6 critical deliverables that the person you hire needs to accomplish in the next 6 to 12 months? I like to ask this question. The short version is, what does this person need to do to be successful? Don't nominate yourself too soon. You don't know whether you want this job. You could nominate yourself as a plan B consultant or fractional manager if it fits, because you're not sure you want this job. After the fact, you remember, people challenge balance and worth. Your decision-making criteria could kick in within the first 20, 30 minutes. But you still need to know what the deliverables are. What do they need this person to do? And if it was stuff you did 10 years ago and it's boring, you're knocking yourself out, but you can possibly help them, right? That's the consultant mindset. Ask about board openings, right? Company is rebuilding. In California, they have to have 2 females on every board or it's a huge fine every year. That was a new law that came into effect several years ago. Any questions on this? These are questions that you could ask. It's also questions that they will ask you. You know, you can bring this stuff up and ask these questions before they ask, you know, trick questions for you. And it gets into really good, productive conversation. And this is I hinted at this earlier, is that you walk away, you get done with a Zoom meeting, and nobody knows what's going to happen, who's going to call who, what day, and what time. Stay the heck out of interview limbo, folks, because it'll drain your emotions right to the bottom, and you'll crash and burn. You can get real excited when you get an interview, and then you don't know what's going to happen after it's over, and it can really be a downer. Okay?
Yeah, I was just going to add on, Mark. You know, typically when I've been in panel interviews, interviewing candidates, typically at the very end, we open it up for the candidate to ask questions. And it would be, you know, wonderful to have, as a candidate, to have some of these questions in your hip pocket to pull out. They're very thoughtful. Thank you.
Excellent point.
Mark, what about asking if you're competing with any internal candidates at this stage?
God, I thank you, Bill. That's a great one. I always, as a recruiter, when I'm working on a search, first question I'm asked to the hiring manager, how many internal candidates are being considered in addition to looking outside? Okay, you have every right to know this. And I don't know how many times I've heard it. Well, you maybe know as well, maybe firsthand experience, where you've gone through the entire interview process and they tell you that they're not going to go with anyone. They've decided to go with someone internally and they're being promoted. Okay, and it just takes the wind right out of your sails. So great point, Bill. I'm going to add it, making a note in my head. This is one of the questions you need to ask no matter what. Okay? Great.
Mark, a point of clarification. I'm assuming that your 68,000 average board remuneration is for public companies, not private.
Yeah, most likely. I wouldn't, unless you're really passionate about the company or service. I don't know that I would ever take a volunteer board without getting paid. You know, but private companies, that's the biggest avenue for finding new board positions. So, I mean, they're just exponentially more private than there are public. But no, the answer to your question is no, not necessarily public, but 68,000 is the average across the board. Okay.
For just to make sure I understand, for public companies, not for private.
No, not just for public companies.
I will respectfully disagree with you. I'm a founder of Private Directors Association, very
Okay.
active with board prospects, and that's not the case.
Well, how much is the average then?
Probably half of that.
Okay,
Okay.
why don't we let Mark finish what his
Yeah,
presentation?
let's not debate at this point. If you want to call it publicly held companies are averaging 68, but I know for a fact that some people I have that are good contacts with me are well above that, even with a private company. But everything is equal according to whatever we both find, and maybe the average is a little bit skewed for a private held company. So let's move on. Okay, 6 key mindsets that I coach. I used to have 5, but I added number 6 in my second book. The doctor-patient method. You're the doctor, and the hiring company or the owner, the CEO is the patient. You know, focus yourself on discovering the pain. What's not working? What have they tried that hasn't worked? What didn't the last person do in the role that they really needed this person to accomplish? Okay, be a buyer, not a seller. Act like a human Switzerland. You're neutral. Don't act like you don't want the job. Don't be aloof, but you don't know whether you want to work there until you get all the facts. It's a two-way street, folks. Hold your head high. The worst thing you can do is act like you need the company more than the company needs you. I'll boil it down even further. Don't fall in love with something that may not love you back. Okay? All right. If you're going to be a consultant, act like one. If you are a consultant, your job is to find out where things are not working. You're a solution provider. You can put this mindset on as you go into the company. And you may already have an idea that it's not going to be the right fit for you, and you can pivot to that plan B. Plan B is the entrepreneurial track. You can impress them to a point where they may like you as a potential board advisor. And you can start playing the Q&A. What's that look like? What's the annual reward to being on your board? Another way is to pretend it's the first day on the job. You roll up your sleeves. It's your first interview. Your goal is to act like that enthusiastic new employee ready to tackle the world. Find out what's going on, what needs to be done. Your job is to make your superior look good. Make them believe you are the absolute right fit for their need. And then this is one I heard years ago. You have a big interview tomorrow. It's a panel or a board interview, and you're a little nervous. You're a little anxious. You're feeling, you know, I got to get this. If I don't get it, I'm really behind the 8 ball. I got to start all over again. So pretend you are on your way home. You stop off, fill up the tank. You go in and you buy a lotto ticket. Next day, you go on the website for the lotto, and you realize you've just won $500 million. Pretending you won the lotto. How would you feel? What do you think you'll do? You've got a big interview coming up at 12 noon over lunch with several of the company executives, the executive team. Would you be nervous? Would you be even interested to follow through, or would you cancel? If it was me, I'd have a little fun with this, because you know what? There's not a damn thing they can do to ruin your day. That's the mindset. Go in and be comfortable. Be a buyer. Maybe you might even consider buying the company. It's a mindset, folks. The key here is to relax. Okay, understand that it's just a job interview. What's the worst thing that can happen? They say, sorry, we believe we have one or two other candidates that are better suited for the job. Great. All you're seeking are yeses and nos. A yes is great. A no could lead to a yes. But you want black and white answers. You want feedback. How did you do? How do you rank with the other candidates that they are interviewing in this process? Okay. This gives you at least a little bit of indicator whether or not you're going to make it to the final round or not. Don't waste your time on something that's not going to yield, you know, the optimal result, and that is a job offer. And then lastly, I know the financial community, it's all about honesty, ethics, and integrity. And I commend you for that, but I'm telling you right now, it's not the same in all types of functions or disciplines in companies. It's missing, but you're gauging this. This is a big part of making the right choice and the right decision, besides the fact that you're going to be exuding or talking about examples where it would regarding honesty, ethics, and integrity. You may have stories that you can share that would imply that these are the things that the hallmarks of your success. So these are mindsets. These are things that you need to exude. Your competition will not be doing this unless they read my book. So think about this real carefully. These are the interview mindsets. So this is advice. I did a lot of surveys, and I've talked with a lot of CEOs, and I ask, what do they look for in the ideal candidate? What are they going to be gauging based on the types of candidates that I would present, or that they're going to see, or that they've interviewed over the years? And this is their response. Every one of these. And this is secondhand knowledge from a survey of CEOs. So there's some common denominators here. I mean, I've already talked about do not ramble, be concise, know the company, respect the time. If you've got an hour, I wouldn't go over an hour. You got to look at your watch and say, look, we're almost done here, and I want to respect your time. Boy, that's a really good feather in your cap. Okay? Think about these. And if you've gone into interviews in the past and you haven't kept these in mind, you'll realize that this is learning. This is knowledge transfer. This is what lessons learned is all about. So here's survey from human resource executives, CHROs to be specific. These are very in-tuned types of situations where these people look for in the ideal candidate. The number one wish list, the last one, has a proven track record of integrity, honesty, and ethics. A lot of reading, but you're going to get a copy of this, okay? And these are the red flags. Same group from the Human Resource Survey, CHROs, VP of HR. These kinds of things are, they're going to hurt you. The kiss of death. If you are bad mouthing, if you're not talking about your actual successes, based on the information on your resume, or your answers do not come out as consistent based on the stories that you're telling. If it's not a bullet on your resume, I've had several clients talk about great stories, that didn't even make their hit list under the job they did it at on their resume. So you got a litmus test to make sure that you don't fall into these traps. Again, preventative maintenance, an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of performance. Okay, let's talk a little bit about salary negotiation. We've got 6 more slides, maybe 5. And we are at 9:41. We might have good time left for question and answer. Okay. You obviously need to know what your worth is. You can do this. The internet's a wonderful thing. You can actually ask AI, what's the average salary for a job, that you give the complete description, location, title, annual revenue, and AI will probably come back because it'll scan every single survey and every directory, salary.com, payscale.com. It knows it all. It can find it quickly. And then the other reliable way is ask somebody that works in the industry, somebody that works at the company, right? You need to know what the heck is reasonable, right? And you've got to be realistic. Otherwise it's not going to work. If you're not within 10 to 15, maybe 20,000 in a gap, the range of salary, well, then you've priced yourself either too high or too low. Hopefully not too low, because then you're underqualified. But I see a lot of people go after jobs that are less than what they're currently doing or previously handled. Like if you're a CFO and you're going after a VP finance, you know, why would you settle for something less? Okay. And it's code for you make too much when they say you're overqualified. And you know you're overqualified if you're going after lower level jobs. And if you're going after lower level jobs because you haven't found what you're looking for and you start settling for less, it's a trap. And it's the quickest way for you to get rejected, because they're not going to hire somebody who could continue looking for the job that fits their needs, even if they make you an offer, which they won't. Does that make sense? I'm hoping I'm getting through, because this is a big, big problem out there, where you start getting anxious, needy, and desperate, and you start looking at lower level jobs because this is what you did 10 years ago, and you're a genius at it, and you could do it again, but you cost too much. And they're a flight risk. And don't be that person. Stick to your guns. Don't settle for anything less. Remember, the outcome of the negotiations will determine, you know, who you are based on your attitude and your assumptions. Any dispute, questions, rebuttals, let me know. But I know some of this will hammer home some really good points for you in case you've gone through this before. You know, try to self-correct and avoid these kinds of situations where you know, fall into a trap, and then you get to a point where it's too late. So remember, going back to people, challenge, balance, and worth. Obviously, a lot of these bullets are very, very common. Every HR person I've talked to, is there always wiggle room after the first offer? Yes. If there's any HR people on the call, which there may not be, I know they're shaking your head. Yes, there's always wiggle room after the first offer. So you should always counter with a higher salary, but you got to be reasonable. Okay? Never cave anything. You know, if you can pretend you're employed, why let them take advantage of you by offering you less money because you don't have a job? You've got to use the mindset that, hey, if I was working, you wouldn't dare try to take advantage of me by offering me less than what I'm currently making. And plus, it's a bad business practice for HR or anyone to offer you less than what you require. It's not going to make anyone happy. It's not win-win at all. That's why recruiters will always shoot for 10 to 15% more, so it's an automatic close. Their job is to close deals. Getting people to the decision table is their job. You're not going to get all the way there with somebody's going to take an offer that's less than what they're currently expecting. Okay? Companies can't get away with lowballing, especially today. Why would they think of doing that? I would have deep suspicion about a company that would come after someone and offer them less than what the market is expecting, or fair and equitable type salary in their industry. Again, I'm paraphrasing some of these, trying to cover without reading word for word. I hate doing that, and you do too. But again, these are reminders, and I highly recommend that after this, you get the PDF from Reuven, go through it again and make notes. Okay? All right. So here's some strategies. Make sure everything is checked the box on this. Don't bid against yourself. You're not in Las Vegas. The hiring manager, not HR, is in much better position to know your value to the company than you are. They always want to know what your requirements are. Too early, too soon, not really interested in talking salary. It's important that we determine if this is a good fit, a match. Do I blend in with your executive team? You're being a little bit of a buyer. You're not being a foregone conclusion. You're not acting like you need them more than they need you. All right? Folks, I've been negotiating offers for 26 years as a recruiter, and it amazes me that companies are horrible. And I mean, many companies are horrible at putting together offers. And they're also equally horrible in interviewing candidates. They don't know how. They're not used to it. Many companies don't even like interviewing. They go through it in their sleep like zombies sometimes. That's where you can be better than they are. You can help them, right? Anticipation is everything. And this, you can steer this. You have some leverage. Yes, it's their offer. Right to hire, right to fire. They got to make an offer. But you need to get closer to that. Every time there's a conversation, every time there's a meeting. Be the one that they want to hire. Be the person that will make their problems go away, that will fit in with the team. And I'll tell you right now, you can fit all of the criteria, check all the boxes, but there's one simple criteria that they will make. The final deciding factor is likability, how well they like you, how well you will get along with them. If you're equal across the board with your competitors, you all make the same amount of money, same kind of education, same location. You guys are equal, you're clones of each other. They will hire the person they like the most. Personality wins out almost every time in the final decision-making factor. Okay? So here's some statements. This is the good stuff. If you're asked, when you are asked, what your requirements are, not including search firms, that means you're not negotiating with the recruiter. Recruiter does that on your behalf. Do not play games with the recruiter. It'll be an instant rejection. Always be transparent with the recruiting firm. But when it comes from the owner or the HR or the executive or the board member, these are some great, great answers for you to respond when they ask you what your requirements are, especially if it's really early in the conversation. If it's that early in the conversation, I would be very concerned about that company. They're looking for bargains and they're shopping. They're not looking for the right. They need return on equity, not return on, not ROI, but ROE. Their investment should not be all dedicated to one thing. They need and have expectations that need to be met. So talk about their ROE during the interview. ROE is a very powerful tool. Just remember that. These are notes that are not on my screen slides. ROE, folks. Come away with anything. That's what you want. You want ROE, and so does the company. Steer away from the financial discussion until it's the last thing that needs to be addressed. Here's the second round. Negotiating statements. Human resources, by the way, they are a conduit for the hiring process. They do not, unless you're going to be interviewing for the human resource department, which you're not, because you're all in finance. You're talking directly to the hiring manager. These are the things you learn the hard way, right? You don't negotiate with human resources. Human resources is the one that delivers the offer after the negotiation has been confirmed as to what you will end up with. And I'm talking the whole package here. Okay? This is all gold. You got to get comfortable with these. Money is important when it comes down to it, but you need really good reasons to wake up in the morning, folks. Money is a stimulator, not a motivator. Do you hit the snooze button, or do you bounce out of bed because you love what you do and you're really excited about going to work? Your bank balance does not get you out of bed. Money is a stimulator, not a motivator. This is what makes me a very good coach, because I've been on the recruiting side longer than I've been on the coaching side. I understand it very, very clearly. And now you are getting a little bit more knowledge transfer and wondering, why couldn't I have found out about this before? Maybe you already knew this. God bless you. Hey, I've reached the end of my slides. These are my 3 books. I'm going to be updating Keys to the C-Suite in January. It's going to add about 4 more chapters. I'm excited about my work, what I do. I love it. I hope that you will all find what you love, and because you won't work anymore when you realize how much fun you're having. But it's possible to find it, but you got to be smart about it, and you got to really set your sights and not settle for anything less. My books are available in most formats on Amazon. I'd love to hear your comments. If you love my book, I would love a 5-star review. It's more than I can ask for. It's the author's dream, is getting 5-star reviews on Amazon. It makes the book trend, and it helps it move a little faster, and it brings more attention. So I appreciate your time and your great attention. Happy to help in any way. These are my numbers, my contact info. I have a blog, but that's not the one. I have to update the, you just go to hireconsulting.com and you'll find my blog. But I've been blogging since 2006, and everything has been updated and current to today's trends. So you won't have to read something I wrote, 20 years ago.